So my son, who was 16 at the time, started dating a girl, and they dated for about a year and a half, right? Which is a long time when you're 16 years old, right? And then, later on, as most teenagers, you get into fights, this and that. Nothing physical, but, whatever. And then for whatever reason, the parents, were trying to kind of break the relationship up, right? And so, and it was like the story of Romeo and Juliet, it really was, right? And so they just didn't like them being around together. They're spending too much time together. They're texting. They were kind of like abusing like time, right, with being together. So it turned out that the parents were like literally like putting like restrictions, saying, "Hey, listen, I want to get to know you better. The only way that you could see my daughter is you have to take judo classes with me." Like they literally put together a contract, right, that my son had to sign.
Interesting.
I'm not even lying, right? So they had to put together a contract that my son had to sign. You can only call her between the hours of like 5 to 9. You got to take karate class with me 1 day a week. And this whole contract that my son, because he liked this girl, had to sign. It's kind of a bizarre story. Long story short, he wanted to be with her, she wanted to be with him, and the parents just kind of completely separated to the point where the parents actually won. And they made the girl believe that he was just not the right person for him. And it really did this emotional thing to JJ, right?
I bet.
Yeah. Where, he would text her and she wouldn't respond. And so eventually, like, he ended up getting served with a restraining order because he was texting her. It was like this whole thing.
Oh, right? My goodness.
Anyway,
whoa.
I'm being vulnerable here, right? But that's
Please
what
be.
make
Thank
your mess
you.
your message, right? So here, why not? Because those are families that learn from it. But this really, hurt my son, right? Yep. And now he has this traumatic kind of thing about this whole thing, right? And he wasn't perfect either, right? You know what I mean? Like, there's always 3 sides to the story, and I'm only telling JJ's side of the story. But it was very traumatic for him. But he went to therapy, and he did counseling, and it really helped. Like, because I went through my own stuff when I was a kid, and I never like was able to breathe out. Like for me personally, I always breathed. I kept everything internally. But for him and going through family therapy with him and everything else and dealing with this, like it works. Like this stuff works. If you're listening and you've got children that are going through issues, like from somebody that was a non-believer in therapy and keep all your problems to yourself and don't, like this really is radical.
It works. It really does work.
Mm-hmm.
And the field's only expanding and trying to increase accessibility.
Mm-hmm.
You hear the few stories of, it didn't work for me, or I didn't like my therapist. Then find a new therapist. Sure. It goes back to find your tribe, find what's works for you. But that's why I love the field so much, is because it works, because you got to exhale.
Yeah. One of the things that I learned in family therapy, and I was like, wow, this is so powerful. Like when because my wife and my one son at the time, like we weren't ready for this. And so anyway, the communication internally in the house became like toxic and all kinds of other stuff, right? But one thing that a therapist, or I can't remember, it was a woman, right? I think she was a doctor. She's like, you have, she drew it out on the board. She's like, you've got emotional response and rational responses, right?
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, that is so powerful, right? Because my wife and my son, JJ, are 2 people that are emotionally responsive, right? And so when you have 2 people that are just emotionally responsive, it's like, whoa, the world, it's like crazy world, right? Whereas me, I'm totally rational. And so but it's not anyways better, but the fact that we can actually put that on and learn from it, and they can understand that, hey, what I'm about to say is an emotional response when we step back and think about it. And then same for me too. Like sometimes I want to emotionally talk, and it's okay to do that. But just knowing the difference between emotional and rational responses and communication, powerful.
That is powerful. That's
right?
Huge. That's huge. And
So
being
powerful.
able to say, I'm really emotional right now. So either I need to calm down and do my work. I got to meditate, got to take a couple deep breaths.
Yeah.
Or if you want to continue this conversation, know it's going to be on the passionate side. And being able to articulate your needs.
And the other thing that was really powerful about therapy too is when you do it, you do group therapy, right?
I like group therapy.
Yeah, group therapy where you have like a mother and a daughter and a husband and a wife with their teenager, and you've got, right? And everybody's just getting out their problems, right? In this very public forum. And it's so healthy, right? Because when you think like your whole world has changed and my problems and this, I could never live again. And then you start seeing other people and they've got similar problems, or in some cases, people are dealing with really traumatic things, right? Some of the stuff that you've probably seen in your line of work in foster care, right? Like, it's like, whoa, right? There's an old saying, right? If you threw your problems into the center of the table, right, and everybody did the same and you solved problems, you would pull yours right back, right?
Right, yeah, you'd pull it back.
You would, yeah.
I also think that chips away at the isolation. Like when we engage in group settings, I think it chips away at that isolation piece. Oh my gosh, my life is terrible. Things are going wrong for me. I'm having a difficult time. Like we internalize and we're on this island. Humans are social creatures by nature, and being able to see yourself or a piece of yourself reflected in another person takes away that isolation. And it gives us a sense of comfort of like, oh, we're all in this together one way or the other.